Hey y'all, welcome to the fourth episode. Is this fourth? Fifth. Oh dang. Fifth episode of the Three Spiritual Chicks podcast. I am Joy. We do have a special guest. I'll announce him in a little bit.
I'm
Nice
C,
to meet you.
aka Ro.
My bad. Go ahead, Bookie. Pink.
How you got it? You got it. Go
They're
ahead.
pretty in pink.
I'm C, aka Rose Red.
And I am Jazz, aka Jazz the Medium.
All right. And we actually have my husband on. That is Tony. He is what is it, my husband, also known as 12 Major.
Man.
So he's gonna be
Oh,
our guest today. So how he kind of came along is every time we have a podcast, I'll be going back and I'll be talking to my husband. And then I come back and I tell Jazz or Tiara like some things that he broke down. And I'll be like, y'all, guess what my husband said? You know? So, and
mhm.
it'd be clicking and making sense. So we decided to bring him on today.
hmm Keep
Well,
on giving us advice. We're gonna be called Three Spiritual Chicks and Tony. That's what we gonna keep on. Keep
I
on,
hear
keep
that.
on dropping, keep on dropping them jewels, Tony. You gonna be part
I
of the
hear
crew?
that. Well, I appreciate you all having me on. It's definitely an honor. Like I said, I've been, checking out, your videos and, yeah, like she said, we would have certain conversations and, curiosity is always going to get the better of me. So, I'm asking questions and she's asking questions. So, um, I'm not gonna lie. I didn't intend to be on the show when you all first started this, but you all have won me over, So to be
Oh,
honest,
first
I really
time.
appreciate the invite.
And congratulations for being the first male on here. First
Yeah,
male, first
yeah,
male on
yeah,
our
yeah,
podcast.
yeah.
You done broke it. So before we get started, I gotta ask y'all the icebreakers.
Uh-huh.
How long y'all been together and married, and tell us how y'all met.
Y'all talked about this already, or you want me to?
You can go
No,
ahead.
we ain't talked
Okay.
about this on here.
Um, man, our story goes back to what 2013. And you see,
Well,
I'm doing I'm doing the mail thing right now, trying to look like 2013, right?
yeah, 2012, 2013.
Yeah.
Um, well, I'm gonna give a synopsis and I'll bring back. So our story go back a little bit further than that, right? Because like I told Jazz and T is once we got to kind of know each other, our lives have kind of been parallel. Like we've been like going from like his church that he was at, that he attended, and my dad bringing us over there because they're
It's
minister of
almost,
music,
yeah.
would bring us over there for the vocal lessons and things like that. So down to going to college together. Now he came into college, right, y'all? And let me tell y'all the first impression. I was like, who is this little dude? We inquire, walk on stage. Everybody is going crazy, right? And I'm like, what? Because I had missed the summer camp in college. Everybody's going crazy. I'm like, what is going on? They was like, oh, he got signed and he could sing and this and that. And I was like, it ain't it. But we were,
Hating.
I was hating,
Look
you know
at
what
you
I'm
now, though. Look at you now.
look at me there, right? Because I was like, look, I had been on tour, did my own thing too, but but from there, we actually were in the music business program together at Winston-Salem State together as well, and then lived in Atlanta at the same time. Come to find out, so like I said, it's been parallel. I worked at one store, he worked like right beside it. Crazy, didn't even know until we started dealing with each other. And then came to a play, the play that someone tried to bring me in to actually help write for and direct. I decided not to do that play and I did my own play. He actually was in that play. Then someone from that play, they decided to come and was like, oh, we know this guy. He can come over here and he can be in your play. And so he came and he was part of my play. And then the rest been history. Now you can finish back.
Okay. Hey, all right. But yeah. So I didn't. I figured you all had, kind of talked about that piece of it. But so yeah, parallel a lot in our lives until that moment where we hit that crossroad, and that was her play. And I mentioned that for a reason. It may come up, later. But yeah, we both hit a certain crossroad, and we just hit that crossroad at the same time. And that was the spark of it all. Unbeknownst to me, she was already telling people that we were going to be married. But,
Dang.
Okay.
Look,
hey,
what,
we
look, y'all.
were keeping it real.
Yeah. What had happened was he hit this note in rehearsal, and I was like, "Ooh, he gonna be my husband." That's how I had.
So,
uh,
so Tony, how long did it take you to realize, like, okay, she's the one? How long did it take you to realize?
um, I don't want to sound cliche, right? But most men, like, we know really early on. Like we know, pretty early on, like how serious we want to take a relationship. I'll say that. So I knew I was already at a point in my own life. I would say it was a crossroad for me. I was already at a point in my life where I was starting to do like the internal engineering, start to, gain some awareness about things that I needed to work on, of opportunity, I would say. Um, so because of where I felt like I was, I knew that, when we crossed paths, that I was going to take this relationship more serious than I had previous. I'll say that. That was a seed. I knew I was going to take it more serious and give more of a true effort. Um, because I saw, what she had going on. She had kids. She was independent, doing her own thing. So, men know, we know, who to step to and who not to step to with the BS. So I knew I had to have some stuff together before I approached it. So yeah, when I knew I wanted to take the relationship serious. There was still some immaturities there, that we had to work through. But yeah, early on, I knew I wanted to, take the relationship serious. So
Okay.
now
That's great.
married, knowing when I was going to marry her, that came later. But yeah.
See, so for all you ladies out there who've been in situationships for like
Mm-hmm.
6 years, he said it. It does not take that long, and they think I be lying when I be saying that. Like it doesn't take a person that long to know whether they want to deal with you or not, or be with you or not. I think that's important for females to hear, because I think sometimes as females we'll hold on to things longer than we should. We'll hold on to the hope that maybe
Um,
he'll change his mind, or the hope that maybe he'll love me, or the hope that maybe he'll be faithful or loyal. And I just feel like it doesn't. I just feel like men, y'all complex, but y'all ain't as complex as us. Like if y'all want to, y'all gonna do it. And if y'all ain't,
yeah,
y'all ain't.
really simple.
Yeah.
Now, I do think there's a caveat to that with men, is that we know what decision we want to make. We know the action that we want to take. What may cause a lot of men to have the delay is because of where we are. So we may know what we want to do, but we may not be that person yet. We may not be as financially stable as we need to be. We may not, have the emotional maturity that we need to have. So if you have, a man with some type of awareness of who he is, then yeah, I would say in our case, because it definitely took me a while to propose. It took, years, 7 years, I think. So we definitely were, we were in that scenario. But I did not want to get married just to get married. I wanted to make sure that once I made a decision to take on that role, that I could play the role as, one of the leaders in the household, financially be able to, hold us up if something was to ever happen. She's always kind of held, we've held each other down. But if something was to happen where there, it was on me, could I do that? And I needed to know that for myself before I made that decision. And I think that is, sometimes the case with men. We know up front what action we want to take. It doesn't necessarily mean the time is right, though.
That's a good one.
Mhm.
That's a good
Okay.
one. Yeah, that's a good one.
Well,
That's
hopefully my future husband listening and taking notes.
He's listening,
yeah.
yeah.
So this and real quick before we get started, I know this wasn't supposed to be about relationships, but it's just something special about y'all too. I
Mhm.
remember reading this book. It's Dr. Michael Newton, and he talks about he's got a few books, but one's called Journey of Souls, and the other one is called Destiny of Souls. And he just talks about he was just real quick, he was a hypnotherapist. He was kind of a skeptic, and he would, help people to like heal from like past trauma by hypnotizing them or putting them down and talking
Mm,
them through it. Well, one day by mistake, he put somebody down and they started talking about what happens during the soul's journey. Um, After we pass away, like what happens. And one of the things they talk about is soulmates and how they meet and how you spoke about that crossword that coming like and how they have certain indicators for them to recognize each other when they come to earth to have that existence.
mm,
And prime example would be like when Joy said when she heard you sing that note, she knew that was her indicator. Like, yep, that's my husband. You know what
mm.
I mean? But like everybody got like indicators. So I think it's so neat how y'all live parallel to each other, and then when y'all cross paths, when it was time, it was time.
Right.
But for those who haven't read that book, it's a really interesting, it's a really, really, really good read. But it's called
Mm.
Journey of Souls by Dr. Michael Newton. But he kind of briefly talks about
Yeah,
that.
I have to check that one out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so enough of the mushy stuff. I'll let Joy take the mic. I'm gonna let you interview your boo. I think I've asked enough. Because I love love, so I got
Mhm.
my questions out the way.
Yeah.
So
Um, what questions can I ask first? Um, all right. So I know when you watch one of the episodes, and it was about my spiritual journey, right? We was talking, and you said, "If you got to go back,
Yeah.
you gotta say this here because before you actually started doing the meditation and everything else, you had to, you missing a piece there. So, do you mind saying what that is, and then telling us what your spiritual journey?"
Okay. And it's just my opinion. I'm gonna say that it was just my opinion, but I felt that watching you, from afar, watching your journey, I felt that one important piece that you didn't include in your story was the the breakdown, I think, of the Christian belief system. And and I brought that up because it was similar for me. I feel like, before you could build something, and there's a lot of scripture, in the Bible that speaks to this, but before you could build something new, you need a new foundation. And that's the piece I think I watched you go through was still trying to hold on to, deep Christian beliefs at some point. And then, slowly unfolding out of that, as you gain more knowledge about Christianity. I would say it seemed like as you studied more about Christianity and talked more about beliefs and gained more knowledge about it, you started to be more comfortable with moving away from that. So I thought that was important to mention because I think that's part of the process, especially when you have something like Christianity that's so deeply rooted, not just in us personally, but it's a generational thing. So when it's so deeply rooted, it does take that type of trauma, and I would say like spiritual trauma to shake up that foundation and break apart that foundation, so you can build upon it and build something new.
Mhm.
Oh, you
Okay.
want me to go into my journey? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah. So yeah, my journey started very similar to Joy. Um, Parents, I don't think I can describe when I say like deeply, deeply rooted in Christianity. 3 services on Sunday. Every choir that exists, we're on it. Um, all the way up until I was, maybe 14 to 15. I was still, trying to win souls in high school. I was still, I was still going around telling people, not necessarily, I wasn't like the judgmental type of apocalyptic type, oh, you're going to hell, but they used to call me PT, positive Tony. I was the one going around like, yeah, man, pull your pants up, man. Don't talk like that around the teachers. And I was always on that wavelength, I guess I would say. So yeah, deeply rooted in the church. Grew up singing in the church. We had, or I personally had an experience, or my family had an experience where, to make a long story short, my mom, she was at, one of the mothers of the church, prayer warrior, and paid a lot of money to the church, and when my family was in a space where we were in need, my mom went to the church and the church turned it back on us. And that was like the beginning of the trauma for me when it came to Christianity. But I still held on to the values. I still held on to the morals. So I would say maybe 18 or 19. And then from that point, I had some friends, my brothers to this day, but, my guys in college, they were always a little more open-minded than I was at the time. And they showed me a video on YouTube called The Zeitgeist. I don't know if you all have heard of that. It's an old video. But it normally does the job for you. And I will, as a disclaimer for anybody that as far as the audience that haven't watched it, um, yeah, all of the information is not accurate, and there's some bias there. But they showed me the video, and it destroyed me. It destroyed everything in me that I knew, as far as my Christian faith. And I was telling Joy that my mission was to prove everything that they had showed me wrong. I was determined. I was upset. That was the first time I had felt that type of emotion, to where I wanted to get physical with my friends for for what they were showing me and what they were saying. I was deeply offended. So I went on a mission to disprove their information. And on that journey, I you know yeah, I was opened up to a world that I never would have thought I would have allowed in. Um, I mean, it's a lot in this. I'm trying to squeeze it in. So yeah, throughout the years, I dibbled and dabbled in some of everything, every religion, because I'm more of a history head than spiritual, I guess I would say, as far as the reason why I research. I'm really big on history, so I like connecting dots, with cultures. So I've dabbled into different religions. I've dabbled into the astrology, astronomy stuff. And all I've gone out flat Earth. I've gone places and come back. So yeah, that's my journey. It started with me being in the church and somebody shaking up my foundation, not knowing that by them doing so, that allowed an opportunity for new information to creep in. And from that point on, it's been about application. Attaining this information, seeing how it applies, so that I can make a better decision on a daily basis. That's what it boils down to for me. Trying to be better on a daily basis and make better decisions based on the information I have.
Mhm.
Okay.
I
And
just
I
had
will
a
agree.
question
I
in my
definitely
mind
saw a
and it
guy
just
guy.
left as soon as it got there. Jeez.
Sorry.
No, I had a question for you and it left me just as soon as I got it. Um, so you said that you dibbled and dabbled in a lot of things, right? So my question for you is there like a belief or a traditional system that called to your soul that you finally settled upon?
Um, if if I could answer that off face value, I would say currently I'm studying comedic science, spirituality, and that was something that was like natural. I didn't seek it out. Throughout the years, I've had a lot of friends like, yeah, man, I got the mental, and read this, and um, but yeah, I just kind of naturally gravitated to this over the last year or so. and reading the information from Netfer. He's the author of Metu Netter, all the volumes that they have. The information resonates on a level where I understand it more than I have with anything else that I've studied. But if I could play devil's advocate with myself with answering that question, um, I try not to hold on to any sense of like a belief system. I feel like a lot of times it's tied to identity. So however we identify ourselves with, we'll filter information in to fit, that identity. So, if I call myself Israelite, everything I research, I'll filter it that way, or Christian, I'll filter it that way. So what I've tried to do in my journey is move away from this self-identifying with the personality. And that's what I would say, personalities, all of these, different personalities I've attained based on my experiences. So I try not to identify with things of that nature. I try to just identify with wholeness and with self. So from that perspective, I feel like the information is in everything. And that's been my journey, is to try to collect all of these keys, gather all of these things so that we could remember, right? Remember these things that we've lost and bring it back together into this proper oneness.
So the way I look at it is that we're all on the same journey, you know. Wherever you believe at source, whatever tradition you talk about, you want to talk about it, we're all on the same journey. And I believe that whatever you decide to practice or study, that's your mode of transportation.
That's right.
And sometimes your car might change, you know. Sometimes, you know, you might be in the Buddhism car, you know, you might be driving
Mhm.
that for a while, you might hop out, you might hop in the Yoruba car,
Right,
you're
right.
riding that for a while, and then you might
Right.
even hop back in the Christianity car, whatever car
Mhm.
you got to ride in, whatever your soul has to do to get you to where you're trying to go.
That's right.
It's your mode of transportation. So I'm like you, I'm never binded to one specific practice or belief. So I consider myself more of a free spiritualist
Mhm.
because I study. I'm like you. I dibbled and dabbled in everything. I haven't quite made it to the Kemetic beliefs yet,
Mhm.
but I do have friends that talk a lot about it. So if you can you tell me like a little bit about like what it is or what the basis of it is for those that
Ooh,
don't know.
okay.
If you can find a way, look, and everybody that I've asked this, like my friends, they be like, "Ooh, where do I
Yes.
start? Where do
Yeah,
I
I'll
start?"
try my best. I'll try my best because it does seem, and I'll say seem because I'm still, I'm reading volume one out of, I think now it's 5 different volumes. So, it seems to be pretty layered. But what I understand um, on this, the basics, I guess I would say, is it is very, very similar to the Kabbalah system and the tree of life from Jewish mysticism. Um, and yeah, he spent about 3 or 4 chapters, describing and explaining how that information in Jewish mysticism, came from Egypt, came from Kemetic science. So yeah, it's really, really similar. How the spheres, and basically the idea is that at the top of the tree of life, there's the unknown God, right, which is known as Amen. So this is the state of where all things are exist, where there is no form, but there is form, right? So, he's called the hidden one, the God that we never see, we never know, but is the backing behind all things that we know. And then you go into these different spheres, um, what we would know now as deities, because, from the story is the Greek gods that we know, the Roman gods that we know are a translation of these deities from the Kemetic tree of life. All right. So it's about this tree of life, and basically these deities are aspects of the one. They are different, if we could say they are different personalities of the one. And it's move, how you ascend from the bottom level of the tree of life, which is Geb, and that's the world, all the material world and everything that we see. It's a roadmap, basically, a cosmogony of how to ascend from your worldly and animalistic nature back up to the realization of oneness with Asar, with Heru, with ultimately Amen. So it goes into how, of course, meditation and mantras is a part of it. Also, rewiring of the subconscious mind. So, in imprinting ideas in the subconscious mind through meditation, to reprogram from emotional reaction to proactive spiritualism. I hope that's the best I think I can do. So,
But
You did a
I
good
hope
no,
that
job.
makes sense.
you explained it perfectly. I understood you.
Hmm.
Did y'all understand them? I understood you.
Yes,
Okay.
I
Um,
did.
but I like something that you said when you said about the deities, right?
Mhm.
And how they are different aspects of our own personalities. Like they're different parts of us. We're just not maybe because the way I feel like they're always a part of us, but our awareness may not be there. So we have to kind of
Right.
raise our vibration to become aware that we are all one in this
That's right.
oneness. Because I think what worries me about spiritualism, because it's so taboo right now, is that you see a lot of people who they treat these deities as if they're aspects outside of themselves.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
like these are real people or aspects outside of themselves. Like, oh
Yeah.
well, if you do this, you're gonna make so and so mad. Like they're this person outside of themselves when they're all,
Mhm.
I mean, the light and the dark ones, the good and the whatever bad ones, whatever you want to call them, they are all actually they're all us.
That's
You
right.
know, they're all us. And I also like when you spoke about how they have correspondence.
Mhm.
So these Egyptian gods and deities, their correspondence to like Greeks, whoever they picked up, the Aphrodite, whoever, there's
Mhm.
correspondence to those, you
Right.
know. Even with how some of us who migrated here to the US, you know, not by our own will,
Mhm.
we converted some of them into Catholicism, and you have your
Right.
saints, you know, when you talk about, you know, voodoo and hoodoo, you have your saints and stuff
Mhm.
like that. So I love the way you mentioned the correspondence, because a lot of people don't understand that. They think that their way is just the right way or this way is the
Right.
wrong way. It's just depending on what culture you're in and what resonates with you with that correspondent. But the energy is the same.
That's right. And I believe that's what was happening in ancient times. Once we got up to, Roman rule, we start to think different. So now everything is segregated, everything. And that's where I think identity start to play a major role, where where we start to get caught into race. And then with race leading, culture now becomes my culture is better than yours.
Yeah.
But I think what was happening was these ancient people that were writing these things, they were commingling. They were being influenced by each other. They were, I wouldn't necessarily look at it as like stealing. And when we know that the Greeks sat at the feet of the Africans, they didn't steal the information. These elders, they saw fit to spread this information to a culture that didn't have the light. So I think that all of these things they they work together. It's like I said, it's a cosmogony to it, where all of these things are like wheels, and you need one to turn the other. And that's why I don't hold on to certain religions, or because I look at it just as those the personalities of the one. If I'm in full of Christians, then knowing that I'm part of oneness, then I should be able to tap into that oneness and be able to use that part that can adapt to being in a room with Christians and hold that conversation in peace and not try to cause dissension, because I feel like what information I know than the information you have. All of us are just trying to attain information so we could use it to make ourselves better. So yeah, I like that ability to be able to adapt. And that's what I think, comedic spirituality gives me, is that ability to be able to see the connection in everything. Yeah. I'm so
Yeah.
sorry to be long-winded.
No, but the funny thing is, I did at one point read about Egypt, and I cannot think about the book I read, but it was a really good book, and it just talks about Egypt in its beginning days and Roman and Greek influence and how Egypt was split,
Mhm.
you know, with the Nubians and
Right.
Kemet, and how those different groups branched off and they created their own traditions based
That's right.
upon their base, which was Egyptian knowledge. And they say the same thing for like those Greek mythologies and those Roman mythologies. Those are all things that they, kind of learned in Egypt and took with them in Egypt.
Yep.
And please, for all you history buffs out there, I read more than one book about this. I'm no historian, but I think I kind of understood that part, that I do believe that the Egyptians had a lot of influence on some of the things that some of us believe and practice today,
Yep.
from
And
their earlier times.
Okay. Okay. We can hear you.
Let me hear you froze up. I was like, oh, where you go?
yeah, I don't know what happened. But yeah, I was just going to say that just to add to that, because one thing we also miss in our culture as African Americans is that Egypt is Africa, right? And I know it sounds like redundant, but yeah, Egypt is Africa. And a lot of the information even predated Egypt because this information was already being cultivated in southern and eastern Africa. It's just Egypt was a repository. Egypt is where everybody came together to dump this information because they were the ones that was writing. Right? So I don't want that to get lost because a lot of times, we'll take Egypt because we'll accept that Egypt was a powerhouse and, our society will move Egypt over to Far East and move Egypt here. But just to say that the information itself, allowed Egypt to be a repository for that information that predated it. So,
And let me just say, throw my little two-piece in it. He got so much. If we could look at his walls down there, I know it's in the studio, but like I call him a scholar because he have all kind of charts. It
yeah,
can be for Greek, Roman, biblical, everything
yeah,
is
kind of,
studies that information
yeah.
That's what's up.
they
I
learn.
like connecting dots. So that's what the charts did for me. It made it make it visual to see like the story. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not the. I think I heard you, Jazz, said you love reading. That's not necessarily my strong point. Reading all the time, but visually, the charts kind of help me see history and connect timelines. So that's why I came to this conclusion based on the information I have in here. Is that all everybody was related. They all worked together. They all were influenced through trade, through information, through spirituality. So.
So what you plan on doing with this wisdom you got? You got a book in you,
That's
what? What you
that's
gonna
the
do?
thing, to be honest with you. Like that is the question. Um, I'm trying to get out of the fear aspect. I know at this point it's fear. That's kind of been one, something for a thing for me in my lifetime is not being much of a risk taker. So there's been a lot of fear behind getting in front of the camera and talking about certain things because I don't want to cause contention with people. And at a certain point, I was on a crusade. I was trying to show all the Christians, hey, y'all wrong, y'all, a lot of relationships were torn, a lot of relationships were broken. Within my family, relationships are not the same because of certain conversations. So, yeah, there's always this fear of contention because I know everybody don't see things the same way. I feel like I understand the source of it, but not everybody see that, it's a lot more serious to people. And the last thing I say with that is it's a lot more serious to people that honestly have not put in the work and put in the time to study things. They're just relying on pure belief. So I try to just stay out of those conversations. And when you talk about social media, it's more of that happening on social media than not. So I just try to be cautious. And I think through me being cautious, now it's caused me to be stagnant. So I'm trying to get my feet moving and get out of that with the help of baby girl here.
Looks like a joyous connection that connected you to breaking the ice
Yeah.
because she got you on camera right now.
Yeah. Candy camera, right? Yeah. But I appreciate it though. She's always with helping me step out of my comfort zone. There was not to get off topic, but there was a show that I had to sing at a couple months ago, and I wasn't gonna do it, and she found a way to push me into doing it, and to this day, that's the best thing she could have did. One of the best times of my life that night to be able to step back on stage and sing. So she does. She does. I don't know what it is, but she know how to push those buttons, yo. Right. Get
We
all the
here
heart.
for it.
Thank you, baby.
We here for it. We here.
Y'all hear that? Ladies, y'all hear that? Men, y'all hear that? Your partner is supposed to help excel
Yeah.
you. Sometimes that means pushing you out of your comfort zone.
Yes.
Telling you, when I met my boyfriend, I am an introvert. I don't like large crowds. I don't like going places. I don't like doing nothing. I could sit in the house in my room with the door closed, locked by myself all
Yep.
day. So, and he's just
Yep.
this big old extroverted Aries, and he like, nah, come on, baby, we going. So it's like,
Yeah. Yeah. That's
I'm
kind of
like,
our dynamic, I think. Yeah.
I'm just, he's the more outgoing one. Like I don't walk around telling people I'm a medium. He'll tell them. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
my baby, she real too. She that real. She be
Yeah.
seeing them too. She real. She real.
I was just telling my brother.
She real.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's funny.
Mm-hmm.
Most guys, I mean, they be like, "You be doing that in public? Like, what you doing? Shut up."
Yeah.
Shit,
Yeah, I
he
was
was
just telling my brother. I said, "Yeah, man, some stuff. Yeah, they for real, bro. All three of them, they for real, bro."
Oh, appreciate you. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
All right.
It feels
What else
like
you
you
got,
got a lot
mommy?
of wisdom up in there.
Mm,
And I ain't reading
Oh,
you
he
nothing.
got a whole lot.
man.
But now, Tony, I got a question for you though.
Okay.
So you just said how you had that fear, right? But I recall a conversation where Joy helped me remember. You was like, when we do our readings, right? I would say, if it don't apply, let it fly, right? But my understanding is your take on it, we supposed to stand on business, right? So would you like to
You
elaborate
be
on that,
talking.
sir?
Yeah.
Go ahead,
So
Atlanta.
Look at Tiara calling people out.
no,
Calling
Right.
no,
people out.
no, not intentionally. It's all love. But I just say that to say, um, because what we're saying on truth. And I know the different. We all talked about like different timelines. So when we say something, you may not be at the frequency to understand where we are when we do our reading. So we are speaking truth. We are standing on business. But I just say that to say to you, like, ain't no need for you to fear because whatever we're doing, we're standing on what we're doing, right? Who we're supposed to reach, we're going to reach. Obviously, you have that singing voice and you have a powerful voice because you speaking like I'm like, oh, I need a notebook to take some notes right now. You have that voice.
I'm just
So
surprised you don't have a platform like this.
that's exactly what I was getting into. I'm sorry, bro, I gotta call you out, but
You
that's
have a
exactly what I'm
ton.
getting
Oh,
into.
You have a ton of wisdom, and I'm sorry, I got ADD. My attention is like my attention span like this. Look, watch all the episodes. After a few seconds, here go me. So you
You
held my
know,
attention. So that tells me
yeah.
that and also you got to understand too. I know it's like a fear there, but also when you speak and you're speaking to us, your soul is having a conversation with our souls too. So there's two conversations going on here.
Mhm,
So you got to understand that. And also you got to understand is I don't care what you do, you're going to have contention.
mhm,
there's somebody out there in this world that is not going to agree with what you say.
Yeah.
You could be Christian like the rest of your family, and they're gonna find something they're not to agree with. There's always gonna be somebody out there that's gonna disagree with what you say.
Yeah.
You know, like people look at me like my head fell. I'll be like, yeah, I went to church on Sunday. You what?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, you went to church? Yeah, I like church. I like the choir. I like reading the word. You know what I'm saying? How can you do that if you're not Christian? Because I can do what I want. Whatever resonates with me, I'm going to do. You're talking about, you know, the comedic in those volumes. I'm probably about to go find them because I want to read them now because you've got my attention. You know, read about everything.
Right.
So I like.
I accept that. I'm sorry. I just want to say I accept that, and you know, I commend you all. I want to, you know, give, you know, all three of you all your flowers. I don't want to single out my baby. You know, all you all as a collective. Because like by you all doing this and then, you know, bringing Joy out of her comfort zone, you know, that's leading me. And that's kind of what I meant, you know, before when I say like, you know, leaders. We're both leaders because there's certain things I'm strong at that she may not be and vice versa. And by her, like this, there's a lot of things that we're very similar at. You know, we talk about, and you know, where that's kind of why sometimes we've been stagnant in moving. But she stepped out with this. I've never seen her step out and you know put herself out there in front of people, especially with the information that you all are. So by me seeing her bravery and her step out, I'm like, so yeah, I'll do the podcast. Yeah, like with no problem because you know I'm taking her lead at this point and living vicariously through all of you all. So I'm watching what you all doing. I'm like, yeah, I see you talking about lighting and stuff. So as I heard you talk about lighting, I'm like, let me fix mine over here. Oh, this will look good for the podcast. I mean, you know, I can see it now. I can see it. You know.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you all. You know?
And I want to talk about how far Joy has come. Okay. The both of them, because when I first met them, they you know they didn't talk about this stuff publicly. You know, like when I first had my meet with Joy, and I'm like, yeah, you gifted too, and she just like, you know, she really ain't want to. She really ain't want to talk about it. So when they came to me, it was like, hey, we're gonna do a podcast. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Run it.
Right.
And I was like, whoa, wait.
I'm not ready.
I got over that fear years ago. Let's run it. Let's do it.
And I brought that up in our meeting.
Don't come to me. I'm gonna push you off.
Yeah.
Push you. And she definitely did.
Man, you can contest. I brought this up in our meeting. I was telling them like how you all, it was fast. You went from an idea to doing the first show in a week. So I think, and that, you know, I was telling my brother them that like, yeah, we've been doing our podcast for a year and ain't recorded nothing. We just been talking every Sunday. So yeah, everybody got to step it up now, you know.
Yeah. See, now we, the ladies, are challenging y'all.
That's right. That's right. Right. Yep.
Y'all gotta do it. Even if you want to, we could probably switch our platform over, get a different platform. We can share a platform with y'all. Now y'all gotta do it.
We've been talking about that. Yeah, we can talk more about that, but we talked about that today. Seeing how we can, you know, involve you all in, you know, some Sundays and ours and vice versa, hopefully. So yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, also I would love to hear some of the topics that y'all talk about. You really got my ear talking about this. I'm very open-minded. You know what I mean? Just like y'all, I had to unlearn.
Right.
I had to unlearn some things. And once you unlearn and you learn the concept of oneness,
right,
it kind of piques your interest to learn about everything.
That's right.
So,
that's right.
We're like sponges, which I love. So I'm excited. This was good. I learned it today. About some wisdom about love and stuff.
Right. We done got around a little bit. So what else you got? What else you got?
Before y'all came out, y'all just sang a song or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, we so this how our conversations be going at work. At work, at home. While we hear a lot of the times. You know, I'll be just sitting there like, ooh, "Ooh, what you say? Oh, that makes so much sense." So yeah, I'm learning from him all the time. Jazz, I know we talked about it offline, but I wanted to bring it back up as far as like the dreams and things. The question that he had as far as and things like that, how it influences also affect the person who's having a dream, or maybe a message in there for the person that's having a dream. You recall that conversation? Hopefully, I
I
said it.
do.
Okay.
I do, because I think that's when I want to talk about how I've had dreams about other people and things like that, and I've been able to, like, they might be premonition dreams about other people, but there be things in there for me too.
Mhm.
Um, so essentially, number one, everything that we see outside of our own eyes, all of our perceptions, is they're you. They're just it's just a perception. How you perceive your reality, how you view your reality is you. And it's the same thing for your dreams. You know what I mean? So everything that you dream about, whether it be about somebody else or something else over here, there's usually a message in there for you. You know what I mean? And then I told y'all the story about how I had a dream about the Notre Dame burning down.
Mhm.
And when I had woke up out of my sleep, Notre Dame was burning down. But what I didn't tell, that I told them off camera, was that dream was a warning. When the lady was in the basement playing the drums, that dream was a warning. And there was somebody that I was dating at the time who attempted to do spell work.
Mhm.
And that dream was a warning. And a warning it was, because from that day after that dream, a lot of stuff transpired.
Mhm.
So a lot of times when we have dreams, whether they be prophetic or not, there is usually something in there or a message for you, because it's your subconscious. Now I know how your subconscious communicates be weird, but it's usually your subconscious communicating to you.
I think that was the question I had. Like, what is the purpose? Is that what I asked? Really, like, what's the purpose of dreams? And because I'm sure she told you all. Like, yeah, I don't remember. I won't say I don't have dreams, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't remember dreams. Um, and when I do remember dreams, they are always like so far. Like I can't begin to try to interpret like what's happening. It's just like so far fetched. I'm like, where's that coming from? So I think that's what prompted that. When I was, asking after that first episode was like, what is the purpose of dreams? Like, is dreams there to forewarn us about like future event, or are dreams designed to realign us if we've gotten out of alignment with something, to realign us? So yeah, I think that's where it was coming from.
So it depends on who you ask. Okay. Number one, the first thing I want to let you know is that our subconscious is a sponge. It does not pick and choose what it want to bring in.
Right.
So everything that you see, hear, listen to, talk about, your subconscious is absorbing it. So, and that can make sense for like some of our weird dreams that we have. And what happens is that our brain waves, when we go to sleep, our brain waves, our conscious mind kind of shuts off, and all that stuff that the subconscious has absorbed, it kind of wakes up.
Mhm.
But also within that subconscious, we got to understand that that idea of oneness, the conscious kind of shuts that off. It's there in your subconscious. Who we are as spiritual beings, who we are as elevated beings, a lot of the truth, a lot of that is in our subconscious. That's why when you're dreaming, you're able to tap into other things and see premonitions and stuff like that, or things about other people's lives, is because it's like, I look at oneness like this. Oneness is like it's like an ocean. That's what it's like. It's like an ocean. And then I think Joy said it before, like it's like an ocean. And then each soul is like a drop, but it's like it's we're all connected in
Mhm.
one type of way. And it's funny that she said that you told it that way, because when I first became psychic in order to tap in naturally, not
That's what
became
you were
when I first
busy.
realized I was, when I would close my eyes, the first thing I would see is the ocean.
Mhm.
And I was like a lighthouse. And remember, at nighttime when you're in the ocean, it's all black. It's nothing there, but you can see a lighthouse hundreds of miles away. You can see a
Mhm.
lighthouse.
Yeah.
So generally, people like us who are enlightened, we're like lighthouses. So information tends to come to us. Souls tend to come to us. They communicate with us. And in our subconscious, which is more awake and active when we're asleep, that's what happens. Now, when we're dreaming, I think what happens is that, and we dream every night, some of that information that our subconscious is processing, that's when we remember them. Now, whether it's crazy and you're riding a horse on the clouds or whatever you're doing, it's usually something in there. But usually that's our subconscious way of communicating with us, and it does it all day. It's just that our conscious mind, our ego blocks it. But when we're asleep and our brain waves die down, that part picks up. So now, even though you're not remembering your dreams, we dream every night, about 5 to 6 times every night. We go into that REM sleep thing, and that would be for another episode. I did a comprehensive study on what happens to the body. I'm a nurse naturally. I'm a science geek. So what happens to the body naturally when we sleep?
Mhm.
But also, I wanted to link it spiritually. So I'm one of those people that like to work in the gray and link
That's right.
spirituality to science. That's
That's
me.
right.
That's my brain. Neurology, theology. That's my thing. I love it.
Yeah.
But what happens is that that's when our subconscious gives us messages, because we're all psychic. We all have abilities, you know, or you might get warnings in your dreams, you know what I mean? Or you might see things in your dreams. Now, how to recall your dreams, it's a few things you can do. Number one, drink some water before you go to sleep, because if you disrupt your REM cycle by getting up and going to the bathroom, you're more than likely to remember your dreams.
Mm.
Number two, if you're more of a writer, keep a pen and a pad by your bed. If you want to just press record on your phone, if you got an iPhone, whatever you got, most of them got recorders now, you can record your dream real quick. I'm telling you, if you wait any longer, you'll forget them. So as soon as you wake up,
Yeah, and the logic
get
start
that
kicking
dream
in.
down.
Right.
Won't remember it. Another thing that I've learned is don't forget we're powerful. Recall your dreams. So what my teacher taught me, shout out to Ali, what he taught me to do was when you don't fall asleep, go to sleep. Create a ritual to go to sleep.
Intentional.
Yep, intentional. And then when you lay down in your mind as you're meditating, say, I will recall my dream. 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 I'm
Mhm.
telling you, it works.
Mm. Okay.
Also, you can try teas like blue lotus, holy basil, mugwort. Ugh.
Yeah, I was going to say
That
I
was
have
amazing.
mugwort.
I don't know about that one.
Mugwort helped me.
If it's
Nasty.
Yeah,
nasty, I
mugwort
don't
helped
know.
me.
Not playing.
I mix everything with peppermint tea. We put a little peppermint up
Mm.
in there because mugwort. But things like that can help you to recall your dreams. You just need to set that intention. I think with you, I think you're very logical minded. That's why you're such a scholar. You're probably a scholar back then. You probably had a lifetime in Egypt and you were scholared in. You know what I mean? I think that's your alleyway. You like to learn. I feel like you'll teach well. You may like to teach. So I can see you, I can feel you doing things like that. So I think for you, sometimes it's hard for you to, even though you do it, I think sometimes it's hard for you to close down the left side of your brain, the logical side of your brain, and really tune into the right side of your brain. So I could see that kind of being like a with you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When somebody like me, I'm just completely right brained. I'm like a lot more right brained than I am left.
Mm.
Everybody's like, my head is always in the clouds. That's what makes me a medium.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we got them
Makes
dreams.
sense.
Let me know how they go too. I want to know what you've been
All
up to.
right. Okay. You said drink water before I go.
Don't get
That's
married.
something I
You gotta
don't
get a
do.
pee
So before I go
now.
to
Right.
sleep.
You gotta get a pee.
Yeah, yeah. You say some teas, but I'll get the details from Joy. So I
Uh-huh.
think she mentioned it already. Y'all had this conversation, so she told me already. But
Hmm.
I'll put it into practice though. Yeah.
Yeah. And it may take a little minute, but you got it. Also, they said there's certain meditations, and I don't know which ones yet. I'm gonna have to find it. I'll ask my friend Indigo. Which, speaking of indigo, we gotta talk about one more thing before we get off. But I'll ask her some ways too, because she's pretty dope, and she'll send you some meditations. Like, here, do this meditation. It'll help. Like when you go to sleep,
Okay.
listen to this. And she's into mantras and meditations and all that type of stuff. But let's talk about the soulless body.
Mm, okay.
That'll be the last thing we talk about before we hop off, because I want to hear your concept, and then I also want to read y'all to the audience, because a few people did hit me up and they wanted me to come back to this. I do want to talk about Indigo's response as well.
Mm.
She gave me permission to teach, but not permission to share. But what is your take on that?
Oh, what was the question you asked me, Joy, when we saw? Because I don't know like how we got into that. Um,
Can a body, yeah, can a body survive without?
Operate without a soul, without the soul.
I say it again. I'm sorry.
Can the body operate? Can a body operate
Oh,
without a soul?
oh yeah. So yeah, I was saying that I think the body is the only thing that's tied to this material world. And there's some other layers, outside of the body, the emotional, mental planes. But those things are still tied to the body, which is tied to the material world. But I think personally that the soul dwells in the body, but it's tied to the spirit. So from my perspective, I think we use spiritual a lot, but I think when we're saying spiritual, we're talking about consciousness, like the one consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if I was using what I spoke about earlier about comedic science, the spirit would be the Amen at the top of the tree. That everything comes from. That is all things, right? Where the soul would be what you said earlier, that drop of the sea. Where the
Mm-hmm.
spirit is the ocean, the
Right.
soul is like that cup that you dip in the ocean. It's not quite the vastness of it, but it got the same characteristics in it.
Yep.
So that's the soul, and that's the part I think is what we consider our higher self, our true self, um, the inner me, all of these things. I think the soul is what lives on from life to life, from experience to experience. But throughout that process, the body itself and everything that's associated with the body, and from my perspective, that includes emotions, things of that nature. Those things are temporary, and die off.
Okay.
What we got?
So,
I'm about to say, Joy ready to come, Jazz ready to come with something.
so the reason why I asked this question is because have you ever have you ever met someone who felt inanimate? Have you ever met someone who felt like, have you ever looked at somebody's eyes and just felt like nobody was home?
Um, wow, no one's ever asked that before. Like, but I don't think I get what you're saying. Of like, I've looked in people's eyes and it's like, yeah, no one's home. Like, so I think that's what you mean. Like, yeah, there's I've come across people where, yeah, where yeah, yeah, it seems like, yeah, no, it's almost like when you go, across abandoned home, and you could tell like nobody's living in the house. Like,
Yeah, it just
so
feels
yeah,
empty.
I think I have experienced that before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the basis of my question to her. Like, are there
Mm.
like human beings out here that can function like that? So before she answered the question, the first question she asked me is, are there cars out there that can operate without a person driving it?
Mm,
There are.
I see what you're saying. Okay. I see the connection you're
Where I'm
making.
going.
Okay.
So what she says is a body can biologically function without the full presence of a soul or higher consciousness. She says in such cases, the body is animated by a life force, but not fully ensouled, which means I don't think the body can be completely devoid or empty of a soul. But if you read Michael Newton's book called Journey of Souls, there are these things called fragmented souls. So what
Mm,
happens is that every time we have an experience here, I'm trying to make it quick because this could be a whole episode. Your soul kind of gets damaged and it gets fragmented. And a lot of times, because whether you incarnate here or not is your choice. It's completely
mm,
your choice. So some of them, like, they're like damaged souls. They come here, and that's when you see like people that do crazy things or heinous things, or they have like different types of mental disabilities or psychosis. Some of
yeah.
those people, they're kind of fragmented. So she says, they have names like empty vessels, background characters, or soulless humans, or she call them NPCs, non-player characters. Um, But she had made a valid point. She talked about walk-ins, which makes sense with the ocean thing, because you got to think about it. If each soul is a drop in the ocean, you know, and there's always an exchange or interchange with these molecules, right? Then why can't the souls do that? Why can't there be an exchange or a walk in or walk out? And I know we probably shared some of this stuff before, but I'm just answering for some people who asked what she came up with. Um, she also talked about different degrees of soul occupancy. Like there's a full embodiment, which is most of us. Um, our soul is full in our body. She also talked about partial embodiment, or the soul is present but suppressed, and this can happen from like severe trauma, um, possession, or dissociation. You might see people dissociate, where they can have different personalities, or you can see people who suffer from severe trauma. They might shut down. Like you'll see them leave when they talk about it, and things of that nature. Something that I've actually struggled with in the past due to severe trauma. I used to have trouble being present. Like I'll leave. It'll be where people just be looking at me like, okay, where did you go? Eyes go blank. That's
Mhm.
called dissociation. That's something that your soul does. It's not only a mental disorder, it's something that your body does. Um, Another thing, which is she said this is extremely rare, is a disembodied shell where the body is alive but the soul has vacated or was never fully anchored. Um, which does not happen often, but you hear about like I don't know if you studied anything in Haiti, but you hear about zombies in Haiti, about these soulless people that walk around. I think some of those are not folklore. I think there's some truth in some of those. Now, whatever they decide to call them or not, it's up to them.
Yeah.
Um, and then she talked about artificial beings and clones. She feels and she believes that they exist. She says that some traditions
Andrew.
in advanced metaphysical studies speak of bioengineered or cloned bodies used by parasitic or AI-like entities. And she said these beings can mimic human life, but are not ensouled in a divine sense. So that maybe there are some walking amongst us that aren't us. So she says, question, are the soulless people living on earth? And she says in varying ways. She says souls who have fragmented or dissociated due to trauma or karma, artificially created or manipulated vessels, NPC-like consciousness who serve as background for other beings in learning, and entities possessed or overwritten by non-divine intelligence.
Mm,
But she said, however, every being began with source light. So that's important to know. Even the darkest shadow originated from the all, the one, the source. Thus, soulless may more accurately reflect disconnection, deactivation, or vacancy rather than a true absence of origin. which means everything in our consciousness or awareness is beginning with source. So to answer your question, you were well, she agrees with you that there's no such thing as something being completely soulless, but we can be detached, disconnected, deactivated, or vacant.
And I think that when I speak about the identity, that's kind of, I've never thought about it in this, from this perspective, but that's what I think about when I think about identity is that for the soul, to me, the soul knows its connection to the source. I think
Mm,
the disconnect is our identity to either the soul or our personalities. So even when I hear like the soul being fragmented, I would say that would have to be a characteristic of the source, of course, for the soul to be that way. But the soul is already a fragmented portion of the spirit, from my perspective. So it's going to have those same qualities as the spirit does. I think our personalities, because we are fragmented in our consciousness, if I could use that in a different way. I think though that's where the fragments and the disconnect is coming from, because nowadays we identify more with what we can see, smell, taste, touch, and feel through external factors than identifying with internally who we are as the self.
you just brought up her final point where she says, the spirit is eternal, the soul is immortal, the body is temporary, but the consciousness is the key that chooses which of these speaks loudest in the moment.
That's right.
You just
That's
drove
right.
home what she said, and I feel like this question has been burning to me so long. And just like y'all have y'all fears, I have fears when answering certain questions like these because you just never know. You know innately on the inside what's right. I
Mhm.
know what I see, what I meditate in my consciousness. I know what it means. But like when you pose the question, what I don't want to happen is for people to try to persuade me to see or think differently.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
part of my fear of speaking up. But my thing is and this is a lesson for everyone. When you listen to that inner compass and you listen to you and what you know deep down inside, nothing can persuade you from
That's right.
that. So I think that was really good. That was a good
Good
subject.
stuff. Good stuff.
So when y'all gonna start your podcast, sir?
Oh, I don't know. We're gonna
Pressure,
get it.
baby.
Now we're gonna.
Pressure,
I like.
baby.
I mean, I like to set up. I like to set up. We say when would we start our podcast? That I mean, that's
Yes.
something that we could talk about. But to be honest with you, right? This
Mm-hmm.
you all doing this, I think, have aided in our relation and aided in melding our perspectives. Because for a large part of our relationship, it was like, well, yeah, I'm kind of doing this spiritual journey thing over here, you doing your spiritual journey thing over there, and it seemed like we couldn't quite like bring it together. So that's why I ultimately ended up inviting her into our studies with the men too. But I think, and this may be the first time I've said this, so I apologize if so, man. She know how I am. I blurt out some stuff, but I think that is some of the undertone reason why we couldn't get it started, because our perspectives different, or we saw them as different. And I think recently now we're starting to see how they correlate and how it's a harmony and a dance between the two.
Mhm.
Oh, that sound like one of Tiara's reading confirmations right there.
I'm telling y'all,
Yeah,
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I did a love
everything is
yeah,
reading.
everything
I'm
is
just.
the
But
everything
yeah.
is the same. It's
Hmm.
it's 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 our the human side of us that separates from it, but everything is the same. I remember in Peace and Blessings Be Upon Him, Brother Panic. I remember one time he was I was watching one of his videos and somebody asked him about race and they asked him about some crazy stuff and he was like, when I close my eyes and I go into meditation, I go into spirit, it's all the same.
Right.
I don't care about that stuff.
Yeah.
It is all the same.
It is nothing but consciousness. That's it. It don't matter if your
Consciousness.
eyes close, if you sleep, or if you pass out, from somebody cutting off that source. It's all consciousness. Yeah.
When I
I'm
had my
fine.
near death experience and I had stopped breathing,
Mm.
I was in this, it was darker than black. It was just nothing, but it was everything at the same time. And when I say I felt like I was a part of this vast energy, I was just a part. I felt like I was there the whole time. I just felt like I was a part of it. There there,
Amen.
there is no separation. I'm telling you. I was a part of it. I didn't want to leave. I felt like I was at home. And it
Yeah.
was just nothing. It was just blackness. It was nothing. I didn't see nothing, but I just knew wherever it was, I belonged there. I was a part of this vastness, this blackness.
Yeah.
Then I saw this bright light from far away, and then pew! I woke up in the back of the ambulance. I
Yeah.
woke up
Yeah.
shit. I'm back here.
Yeah.
So,
That space that you're talking about in comedic science, that is the space of amen. That is the space where, the society has called it chaos. But what we would call it in comedic science is that is the space of the unformed, the unformed.
yep, some call it a
So
void.
yeah, that space of darkness, of that nothingness, that's where everything came out of, and that's that space that the comedics call amen.
And it's crazy because it's kind of like the word I use for it is love, but people don't understand how vast the
That
word
is, yeah,
love is. I just
yeah.
felt like that blackness, that nothing, it just kind of welcomed me.
Mm.
It kind of enveloped me. I didn't remember having children. I didn't remember all the chaos that I went through here. I didn't remember being assaulted or any. I didn't remember that,
Mm.
none of that mattered. I was just in this enveloped in this energy, and I was just floating,
Yeah,
floating with it. And then
yeah.
bam, I'm back. And then I start seeing dead people again. That started.
Yeah, yeah.
But we have went way over.
Oh,
But this
yeah.
was a really good episode. I'm so happy you came
It's
on.
good.
We're gonna invite you back on. We gotta
Man,
come
please do. Please, like,
back and do
I'm open. I'm open to it, and I really enjoyed myself. Once again, it's been an honor, and I appreciate you all for having me. So, I
So we're
like
gonna
good
have
cooking.
a
I
special
like good
segment.
cooking, and this was some good cooking right here. So,
We're gonna have
yeah.
a special segment. It's gonna call Three Spiritual Chicks and Tony.
All right.
I'm with it.
She gonna come
All
on
right.
here and drop some jewels, and I'm excited to see your growth as you continue to study,
Thank you. Yeah.
because I can see you teaching it one day. So
Mm,
I'm excited to see where you go with that.
thank you.
All right. You wanna intro us out a joyous connection? You
Come
wanna
on,
say
babe.
you wanna say Ooh,
Thank you for coming.
ooh.
Thank you. This is our fifth episode, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. Tune in next week. Make sure y'all like and subscribe to us, okay? If y'all like what y'all seeing. But thank you guys for tuning in. See you next time.
I'm gonna get her to sing. Watch, I'm gonna get you to sing.
Yeah, one day, all right?
Peace.
She said
All
not
right, peace,
today,
family.
okay? See y'all